Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode. This episode we're going to discuss about uh, digital futures. And I want to share some good news because we have a commitment that we want to solve the educational problems. And today I do collaborate with our organizations, with few university in Malaysia, University of Malaya, International Islamic University, and some other few famous universities from Malaysia and Bangladesh. And soon we launching our university partnerships.
The audio does not seem to be working.
Can you hear me?
Me.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we are launching our university projects. Beside that, as a global think tank, how we getting support from our global speaker like Professor Rob, Professor Donald, Professor Edward, Dr. Eric Dew, Ali Rice. This is highly appreciable in the intellectual community in Malaysia and Singapore. So we have our summit next month, and soon we are launching our university projects, and hopefully we can solve many youth communities problem, and definitely the university will be based on technology, science, and engineering. So I want to start with Professor Rob. How do you want to analyze today's topic, digital futures? And I have a specific question that in modern age, if we want to develop our universities, especially for developing skills and then how we, yes.
Sorry, you cut out through about the last half of that question. So could you re-ask the question, please? It was something to do with university developing skills, but you cut out.
Yes, basically, my question is that how we can develop modern curriculum for our youth community, especially based on cutting edge technologies and these things.
Well, I think first you have to decide where you're going to teach. Are you going to teach on premise, or are you going to predominantly teach remotely? Is it going to be some kind of a hybrid model where they're mostly remote but may come in for certain meetings? But the mode you're going to use for teaching probably should be, because with the pandemic stuff, everything's kind of changing, and it might make sense to have, rather than having a physical campus, for a lot of the folks to just set it up initially as a hybrid or a digital campus to begin with, and just put that in the pipe. And setting up the curriculum, you probably should be talking to somebody that does more of that than I do. But here's how I do it if I was given the project. I take a look at the needs and requirements of my geography. In other words, the in-country requirements for education that are being missed by other education institutions, particularly with regard to technology. And then I would craft. Then I'd also look and forecast what the future is going to be like 5 years out, and what the job horizon looks like at that time frame, because people going into the curriculum have to come out against jobs that exist then, not jobs that exist now. And then based on that, I would form a trial curriculum, send it around for review, not only with the other professors or contributors, but with prospective students, and ask for feedback. Are there things being missed? Are there items that have been selected that probably nobody cares about? How do I refine it? And then from that, I'd probably roll my initial or near final draft of the curriculum. At least that's how I'd approach it.
Thank you. But one thing, it's in our mind that we want to develop our curriculum and everything based on the industry demand. Right. We want to do definitely based on.
To determine what that's going to be, because it won't be the demand of today. It'll be the demand 5 years from now. And so 5 years from now, we're probably going to have a much higher demand for things like geothermal expertise, because those things are spinning up. Advanced battery technology, probably superconductors, will be an area of research. Data scientists are going to go through a rather major change as we go through the next 5 years, and it may not make as much sense to have data scientists, but certainly AI experts, those that know specifically how to train AIs and then how to efficiently take them to inference and implementation. So those are the things, at least off the top of my head, that would be areas that I think we're going to be needed much more in the next few years. Oh, and agriculture. Basically scientific agriculture, indoor factory farms, that kind of stuff with climate change. That method of producing food shows very promising because it can resist the climate change far better than normal farms can. And then, of course, robotics as an obvious area to kind of cap it out. But these are just things off the top of my head that are likely to be much more powerful in 5 years than they are today, though they are ramping for the most part right now.
Excellent, Professor. Professor Edward, how do you want to analyze the concept of digital future as well as modern educational concept you want to share with us?
Well, I'm glad you're bringing the two together because they're so crucial. Education, the university that we are discussing, and the digital future. Of course, I agree with what Rob has said, and I would add something important. Exponential technology, as we know, means change is very, very rapid. The Industrial Revolution took hundreds of years, and there was time to adjust systems. People could retrain during that time. New demands came up, and workers basically were able to meet the demand over time. Change is going to be much more quick with exponential technology. We see this already. So part of an education curriculum concerns training individuals to think innovatively and to think creatively. That's what we see. That's what we saw, for example, with the communications information revolution. Bill Gates, for example, understood in the 1970s and the early 1980s that as hardware companies competed to produce computers, that hardware prices would go down. So as an entrepreneur, he understood that it would be the software that ran the computers and that provided the applications that made computers valuable, word processing, spreadsheets, and the like. That would be where the profit would be, and that's where the value would be added. So Gates, as an entrepreneur, didn't just say, well, let's make computers like everybody else. Gates, as an entrepreneur, understood that we have to look ahead. Flexibility is going to be crucial. For example, there's a book called Robot Proof that is very interesting here, and there's been other books about this, about how, because change is going to be very quick, training quick minds to understand history, to look at how innovation worked, is going to be crucial. I'll give you one quick example to dovetail towards a discussion of digitalization. In the 1970s, an inventor at Kodak came up with an idea for a digital camera. In other words, instead of having a piece of film that you exposed to light and then you ran through a chemical process to create the negative and then you printed the negative, you could create a picture a different way using a digital way of creating a picture. The problem, of course, was that it was a very crude picture because at the time the technology was not very good. Kodak simply decided we're going to continue to make money by producing cameras and producing film and producing the paper. I actually worked at one time in a Kodak generated photo factory. So I saw these big things of paper coming in every day. Of course, what happened was, as Moore's Law moved on, the digital process became more efficient, became more refined, and Kodak just continued to do the same old thing. And so what happened, of course, is digital cameras came along and wiped out Kodak. The point is this: if you're training the future generations, they need to understand those kinds of stories. They need to understand that they need to be trained, as Rob has discussed, but they need to be flexible. They need to be flexible of minds, because that's very important. I suggest, by the way, Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler have done an excellent book called Bold that reviews those sorts of examples. So for those, this should be reading material at our university, as well as other materials.
Thank you. Dr. Eric, How do you want to analyze digital futures and modern education system?
Oh, we've discussed this a number of times, and I agree with the other speakers here that education has to change, because when I was going to school, right, when we were going to school, what we were lacking was access to information from various sources. We had the encyclopedia, and that's basically it in terms of reference material. How do we get information? It was, you go to the library and you search for journals and you search for this, and that was a very tedious and slow process. And in a way, we were taught how to use that to doing things like book reports and various things like that in high school, and then in college when you're doing certain types of theses and things of that sort. It was kind of figuring out how to access the library to get that information. But now, it's just so many. The impediment now is, how do you access the right information? Because there are so much things going out there in the world, and it's so easy to get wrong things, right? I mean, we know there's a whole group of people here in the United States who think that COVID is a hoax and all these other things. And how do they get that misinformation? It's because they're listening and they're reading from different sources that are just completely wrong. So there has to be more of a understanding of how to assess the validity and the quality of the information. And that's just something that teachers would have to teach. And education, if there is any bare standard that they have to accommodate, it would have to be in. I don't want to say that teachers should be the guardians of deciding what is right and what is wrong, because certainly there are some teachers who are biased one way or the other. But there should be standards in terms of how to evaluate the next source of information. It has to teach people how to make that evaluation, and that would be something that has to change in terms of education. And in regards to how does that tie to digital and all that, well, other than the fact that we're using the sources digitally, electronically coming in, that's about the extent of how that is related. But there's other ways of doing that, and I'll come back around in the next turn.
Thank you. Madam Ali, so how do you want to analyze today's topic? And if you want...
what's exciting is the digital kind of revolution means that if we utilize it in the right way, students are going to be more inspired and engaged. But I think it's the ability to inspire them and make it interactive, so that there's because I think young people of today, when they go out to the workforce, are going to want to at least love or be passionate about what they do. So essentially, I think one of the things is that they're not going to just accept any job without having some kind of journey and meaning for what they're doing. And I think that kind of sense of autonomy, so that they get to make decisions and actually do something purposeful, is going to be really crucial. So, and I agree with what Edward said actually, that kind of long term, it might be that we don't have long contracts, but we've got to be versatile and creative in whatever we do. And those are soft skills as well. So communication with people is really important, and realizing that there's a whole world out there as well, instead of just a kind of small, isolated, kind of parochial view of the world, is really important. So I think the thing is that we need to make sure that children, and young people and students are quite free thinking and look at possibilities, instead of being channeled and expected to make decisions that other people have made already. Because being creative and innovative means that you need to figure out solutions and find out other ways of doing things that no one else has looked at before. And then you need to be able to either kind of expand those or kind of multiply them so that you can apply them And knowledge now, when we were at school, a lot of the examinations were all about kind of parrot learning and then giving the information back, but not really applying it. And real knowledge is about being able to apply it so you can utilize it and use it for a purpose. And I think there's kind of lots of, I trained as an artist, but I think the kind of crossover between arts and science is really important, and the creativity and problem solving is where that kind of keys in. And I do think the creative industry is one of the industries that's always been kind of, until recently, wasn't anywhere near as strong and kind of impacting it as it is now. And the creative industry is one of the industries that students should think about going in, because communication style and connecting people is really important in whatever industry you do. So, and I think, for young people and students, if they love and they're passionate about whatever it is they're doing. So my eldest nephew's studying engineering at Oxford University. And, there's lots of applications to the general engineering. But so I think the thing is that passionately going forward on a journey that you feel like you're on track with makes a massive difference to whether you're committed to it or not. So, it's kind of, so, and I think that kind of sense of innovation and kind of giving students an opportunity to answer briefs and actually do something that can be applied to something that really changes things makes a difference too. So I think being involved in real projects or being part of something that really impacts something that's actually going to physically make a difference, as opposed to something that's kind of just hypothetical. So yeah, I would say that kind of real experiences and kind of applications really crucial.
Thank you, Madam Ali. Ugochukwu, how do you want to analyze digital features, and especially how we can engage with our modern education system?
Okay, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I actually happen to be preparing the program for students with skills. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. So I actually happen to be preparing a program for students, secondary school students in my country, and the program is based on what I call personal initiative, which prepares the students based on the new science of personal development, for them to be able to develop the skills, the capable skills that will allow them to face the kind of new future that digital transformation is bringing to the world. And that program focuses on helping students understand the most important skills that will be most relevant as they go into the future, based on the realities that technological and digital transformation is bringing on board. And one of the things that I tell students when I come in contact with them is that, it used to be in the past that we were told that at the dawn of the digital revolution, the advice that we were handed down was that it is important for us to learn digital skills, because digital skills will become the future skills that will allow us to leverage the digital economy. And that made sense, because when we talk about digital skills, when we left the physical realm of doing things, the analog age, and then we went over to the digital age, and most of the skills, or most of the relevant skills, equally transformed, and then we transferred them to this digital world. And so up until now, that advice made sense. Now, until recently, AI started encroaching into the mental skills that we have, the psychological skills that we have. And up until now, it used to be that when we talked about creativity, when we talk about innovation, when we talk about AI, we all usually relegate it to repetitive mental tasks. Tasks that had to do with manual work that you needed to do, or mental tasks that required simple arithmetics that could be calculated. And so we relegated AI to those to that sphere. But recently, what we are now noticing with the new digital technologies that are coming out, that are coming on board, and then with the transformation that is happening with AI, and equally with the arms race that companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft are now going towards getting the best kind of AI that can really surpass the market. What we are now noticing is that gradually AI has begun to now encroach into almost every sphere of human activity and also every sphere of human capability. And so it is almost difficult for us to now relegate and say this skill or this capability is only reserved for humans. What we even call creativity, what we call innovation, those are questionable to the sense that if we if we ask the question, what is a creative work? What is a creative art? Many people can say composing the music, writing a movie script, or making art. All of these things can be categorized as things that are relegated specifically for humans, and they are creative skills and they are creative arts. But we now see that there are technologies, there are AI systems that can write movie scripts, that can make better arts, that can compose musics. That when those musics are given to you to look at, you would find it difficult to really differentiate between the music that was composed by an AI and those that and that's what and the music that was composed by a human being. So it's now become a very difficult question to really answer which of these areas are really which one is really delegated or left for humans to play. And so that is why I now come up with and I'll say that it used to be useful to say that we acquire digital skills. But the thing that we now have on board, the realities that are coming on board now tells us that getting digital skills is not enough for students. Is not enough for anybody who wishes who wants to thrive in this digital age. Digital skills is not going to be enough. What I suggest, what I propose is that for you to survive and then go on to thrive in this new digital era, you would need digital mastery. And so that is what I tell them, that you're going to need digital mastery. And then digital mastery doesn't really bother on getting digital skills. It is important for you to get digital skills, of course. You would need some digital skills in the short term. But in the long term, what you need is digital mastery. And then one would ask, what is digital mastery? As I define it, digital mastery is your understanding of the systems and the processes that come together to create the ecosystem of the digital space and the cyberspace. All of those factors that come together, all of those mechanisms, all of those structures that come together to build, to create the digital space. You really have to understand how all of these systems come together. So think of it as a systems thinking that you would need in order to approach the digital space, to understand how to work together with AI. You didn't have to understand how to work together with AI, how to work together with machines, how to manipulate digital systems in order to create a higher level, in order to solve higher level problems, to operate at the level of a higher level problem solving that will allow you to work together with AI and then produce things at a much higher level. So relegating yourself at whatever level on digital skill will not guarantee it. Is not going to cut it, because whatever skill that you think that you have today, whatever digital skill that you think that you have today, if you understand the very basic principle that underscores every human capability, every human work, you would understand that at the basics of all of human work, everything that is involved is about pattern recognition. And as far as every task involves pattern recognition, any AI systems, any sufficiently advanced AI systems, given time and enough computing power, we over time simulate that pattern, and we replicate it. So no matter the digital skill that anyone thinks he or she has at the moment, be it higher level programming skills, be it a higher level, whatever skill of it is, I don't care. As far as it involves pattern recognition, which basically is everything that human beings involve in, then any sufficiently advanced AI systems, like you have the GPT-3 that has come up recently, and even those that Google are developing, any sufficiently advanced AI system will be able to replicate that. So if you want to safeguard your future, if you want to build a sustainable future when it comes to the job market, when it comes to understanding how to thrive in a digital job market, then you're going to need digital mastery to really thrive in this new age that we are entering.
Thank you, Mr. Oguchukwu. Professor Rob, Oguchukwu come up with a very important point, especially design thinkings and the digital masteries and strategical improvement of the digital things. How do you want to analyze from your industrial experience and how it will be helpful for the future generations?
Well, I'm just kind of thinking through the concept. I'm of the belief that I get what was being said with regard to digital mastery, and it's an interesting approach to the underlying problem. But with regard to using any tool, often you don't necessarily need to know how the tool is constructed to use it properly. It depends on the tool, though. But I kind of get what he's getting at. If you don't really understand the fundamentals of a system, it's very difficult for you to explore the limits of it. You won't be an inspired user. You'll be a pragmatic user if you don't understand the fundamentals. In other words, your skills probably won't advance very well. As we're thinking about the future of education in this, we've talked about this before in prior sessions, but where education institutions tend to let everybody down is they don't really provide practical knowledge. And so you come out with a lot of theoretical stuff. You're taught by people that have not been in industry for either a long time or ever. And then you come out and you're expected to do a job that has almost nothing to do with what it is you've been learning. Your best skill was you were taught to learn. And so as long as your mind is still open to learning something new, that's a valuable aspect. But those that really hit the ground running are those that have been working while they've been in school in some related job or field. So they've been applying what they've been learning while they've been learning it. And that allows them to make those individual leaps. I still remember one of my closest friends who went to Don, buddy, mute. We hear you. One of my friends that went to law school, he came out of law school, had no clue how to practice law. In fact, when you go to law school and you go to work for a law firm, that's probably where you get your practical knowledge. Is you work as an associate for a period of time, and in the law firm, you actually get the knowledge you need to practice law, which seems really, I mean, it's an extra step that we shouldn't have to make. You should come out of school with skills that are marketable. You should be able to hit the ground running. I mean, there's this little stuff. I mean, people come out, they go to school, and then they get the job, and then they're living on their own. They don't know how to do a budget. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to manage work life. Hell, they often don't even know how to behave in companies. We've had a number of people that we hired out of school that were fired within the first 6 months for misogyny, abuse, for just stuff that you would think would just be basic stuff of respect, for instance. And so if I was designing a school of the future, I'd probably make as a core to that a partnership with industry, some of the largest, most powerful companies that would be consuming the jobs I'd be forming, and the curriculum would be a blend of people learning often from folks that are actually practitioners that are doing the job now, from actually going in and doing projects in the companies that are sponsors so they can see the application of the knowledge, and classes and sessions on just kind of the fundamentals of living, behavior, how to treat people, members of the opposite sex, how to build and sustain relationships, how to know when you need help. Little things like that could change dramatically the quality of life for the folks that are coming out of school, because you're focusing on things that maybe their parents should have taught them but didn't. Focus on things that their prior education experiences should have shared but didn't, and you're closing the gap. And then finally, to do that right really does require you get to know the students. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are their aspirations? What would be the best fit for them in terms of a career now, but not just now, because we know they're going to change as they grow. We can build computer models that can anticipate what those changes will be and forecast not only where they'll be happiest in their 20s, but where they'll be happiest in their 30s and 40s. We might even be able to help them choose what kind of a family unit that would be best for them, given the career choices that they've taken. So, for instance, if we find they really want to have a career choice in the military, traveling all over the place, maybe they should hold off on getting married until that travel requirement drops down, because so many marriages fail for that very reason. Or they take the risk into account. We tell them how to help them understand how to sustain that relationship during the heavy travel, but we give them the tools that they're going to need in life to have a successful life, and work with industry to optimize them against the career that they most love. The goal is not just to get them a job. The goal is to give them a sustainable life. So at the end of their life, they look back and they find it as a life well served. And to that end, we constantly run computer models and simulations to assure we're optimizing against the ideal. And we carry it on throughout their entire life. We maintain contact with the students. We may give them opportunities to come back and learn new skills, but we make sure we assure their future, providing them with the resources they need throughout life to have a great life.
Excellent. Professor Edward.
Less of a parachute in and out and more of a lifetime commitment with the student. All right, go ahead.
Right.
Sorry.
I couldn't agree more with Rob's points here, as well as with Ugo's points. But I want to add a couple of things. One of the problems we have in the United States, which of course we can learn from as we set up future universities and schools, is it used to be in our lower level schools, high school, junior high school, etc. We did in fact learn life skills. We did learn, at least when I was young, we learned how to behave. We learned how to deal with people. We learned these kinds of things. One of the, and as well as just basic skills like math and reading and so forth. One of the problems we've seen in this country for decades is that kids going into a university don't even have the lower level skills. And so universities have to devote a lot of resources just to make up for the deficit in the lower level schools. And that's a serious problem. Switzerland provides a very interesting alternative. In Switzerland, 70% of students at the high school level or a little bit above go through some kind of an apprenticeship program, meaning that part of the day they go to their normal school, and part of the day they go to, for example, it could be a pharmaceutical company, it could be a finance company, it could be a tech company, it could be any kind of company. There are several hundred different kinds of internships you have in Switzerland, and in other countries do this as well. And so you're getting not only the basic skills you would get in high school, you're getting specific skills that you might need if you decide to go into pharmaceuticals, or if you go into one of these other areas. It's a job, in a sense, it's a tryout for a job. You might discover that, well, I really don't like doing this, but I really do like financing, or I do like some other issue. So you're developing that, and you're developing, as Rob suggests, work skills. So you know how to work in a company with a team. You know how to behave. And in the United States, we are starting to see an uptick of interest in this particular approach. And this is bipartisan. President Trump reformed our labor laws to allow more of these. Current Democrat Senator, Senator Hickenlooper from Colorado, helped found in his state of Colorado a system modeled after the Swiss system. The final thing I want to say is that, and a theme going through our discussions, is the importance of learning to think, learning to analyze. I want to suggest another very good book that should be required in any course, and it is called An Exercise in Clear Thinking by You can see it right here. I want to suggest this book and other books because again, it provides those basic skills of thinking, of analyzing, of problem solving, of trying to look, as Eric discussed and some of the others discussed, of looking at an issue from several sides and not just taking something as dogma. So learning how to think is going to be crucial in a digital age because even though you want to learn a particular skill, whether it's finance, research, or whatever, you're going to need to learn how to think. Our brains are really the ultimate source of our values. And so we really have to take care of that resource first and foremost.
Thank you, Dr. Eric.
I was really I really like what Rob Enderly was talking about. It really resonated, and what he was talking about reminds me of what is trying to be done right now in medicine, which is customize healthcare using AI, where you use your DNA and whatever information that they have of you, as well as the diagnosis that they have, and they customize the healthcare given to you so that
I just turned in a paper this morning on exactly that, Eric.
Yeah, so that your treatment will be significantly different than another person with the same medical condition. So you could have leukemia and another person have leukemia, but your treatment will be completely different than the other based on what your genetics are and what the level of your stage of cancer and all these other things. And that is and AI is used to do that assessment because they can look through x-rays and all these other stuff and get much more information out of it because they have scanned millions and millions of what Ugo was talking about, pattern recognition. They've scanned millions of x-rays to know what to look for. They've scanned millions and millions of assays of blood tests and all that, and they know what would be the right thing to do, whereas no human doctor would ever be able to get that information. So rather than trying to be uber doctors and say, hey, I know more, just be humble and let the AI do it because they can do it better. And what Rob is suggesting, I think, is to use that AI as a counselor for students to know, hey, I think you should become a, I don't know, CPA or whatever it is. I hate to tell people to be CPA. So to me, it's such a boring job, but some people love it, so I can't bias one way or the other. But that's the thing, is that counselors at schools are limited to what their range of experiences are and limited to what they know. And same thing with teachers. Ed was talking about, teaching how to behave and things of that sort. But frankly, most teachers don't have that kind of experience and they don't have that way of doing it. And whatever knowledge they do know, sometimes it's 40 years old. I remember when I was in junior high and our teacher taught us how to do penmanship. Who the hell does penmanship anymore nowadays? Okay. I mean, I can barely scribble my name, but actually my penmanship for my name is rock solid from back then. Okay. I haven't changed, unfortunately. People's penmanship is basically your signature. There you go. Okay, there exactly. Yeah. So, a person's signature now is not so much so that it's legible. A person's signature now is it's like a fingerprint. It's a unique structure that validates who you are for banks and maybe for voting at certain states and so forth. That's how it's being used, not the fact that we can read your name written clearly. Okay, we don't need people to know how to write like John Hancock. Okay, we need people. That's not the point of your signature anymore. And so having teachers like what I had in junior high who was teaching penmanship like that, that's archaic. Okay, and if you're going to have teachers trying to do that kind of teaching in a new generation about how to behave at work and how to behave at certain settings and all that. My God, we're going to be putting people in there with 40-year-old ideas of how to behave. They're going to get screwed. I got to tell you that, because you need to be up on it, because things are changing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And it was probably, I think the best way to do it is to just invite people from, workforces, HR departments to come in and tell people that this is what you do. But the AI for guidance, I think, would be a great idea to help a student kind of learn what the possibilities are for them based on based on a personal assessment of them. My only concern is that I, as a person, tend to tweak my assessment of myself. And so what I give to the AI is not really what I am, because I kind of like hype myself up, and I'm sure other people do certain things like that. And that may influence influence the AI to give me a wrong suggestion, garbage in, garbage out. So if I feed in AI garbage ideas of what I like to do and all that, it will tell me, oh, you should do X, Y, Z. And then I find out I don't like it because I didn't believe what I really am, or I don't really understand who I am. That's what happens sometimes. So.
Thank you, Madam Ali.
Okay, so because I've worked running creative processes and creative learning for about 30 years, predominantly in schools, and I think one of the things that does, it enables. I've worked with secondary school children and some colleges and universities as well. But essentially, what it does is it gives young people the choice and the ability to critically think and collaborate, so that they have an individual journey and a shared journey that's got a common goal and objective. And I think and what was interesting is what happened is there was a Creative Partnerships national campaign in the UK that brought creative practitioners into schools. And it was deliberately designed because there were so many children that were disengaged in learning. And essentially that probably carries forward and all the other things you've discussed about apprenticeships and bringing people that are from real industry to kind of put together real proposals so I think there's no substitute to actually having a real experience that has context to demonstrate what you're learning actually works. So essentially I think that's really important. And I think those kind of partnerships, so that people have experience. We work with the Small Piece Foundation that encourages girls to go into engineering, and students from secondary schools around this area made their own prototypes of wind turbines, but they actually constructed them so they worked and they could measure the power they generated. And so essentially, that those prototype ideas and just having the experience to kind of apply cross-curricular things are really important. So and I think that kind of experience and creative thinking is critical to, instead of being spoon-fed knowledge that just has no purpose. So I think it's that kind of thinking for yourself, and I do think as well that the AI tends to put you in a box and doesn't make room for the potential and the possibility that you've got. So everyone evolves however old they are, and through their experience. And not everyone, their unique pathways, sometimes what they want to do isn't necessarily, their route in the world takes them on detours that are probably there for a reason. So I think it's, that I really believe that individually everyone's got a purpose and a reason to be, and that inner compass kind of leads them forward. And mine's definitely being creativity, but that's expanded. My experience over 30 years has taken me in complete, all kinds of directions and all over the world. So I think it's, and I started off by drawing, so that the fundamental ability to draw was my key skill, and it's taken me to make animation and films, and it's kind of, but that ability to draw was my key skill and creativity. But it's about thinking. It's not about just making pictures. It's creative thinking. So yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ugochukwu and Professor Don. I'm coming back to you. Before that, Professor Rob, my specific question is like that: when IBM, let's say IBM hiring few graduates for their companies, what is the requirements, or what they are looking right now, what type of engineers or from industry, how you want to share your experience with us. Like even we will share this content with many young communities and universities. So what their requirement, how they look, what type of employees they need when they hire the new employees.
Well, generally, IBM, like most multinationals, would prefer to have folks that have at least some experience before they bring them on board, though they do have education partnerships to bring people on board out of colleges and universities. The folks that tend to do the best are those that have had some experience with large companies. If you have had no experience with a large bureaucratic company, you're going to struggle a bit in a company like IBM. When I was there, we used to have it probably wasn't the nicest thing to do, but we would actually bet on how long somebody that came in from something other than a large enterprise would last in the company. And I think the smart money was on 9 to 11 months, and they'd burn out and they'd leave. And because it just gets frustrating. And now IBM's improved over the years. When I was there, I would argue that for every one person you had trying to get something done, there were 9 people telling you it was either impossible or was against policy. So it can be very frustrating because large companies tend to be pretty bureaucratic, and you have to learn how to work through the bureaucracy to get anything done, and that's really hard for folks. So having some experience in terms of dealing with those kinds of problems certainly helps a lot through the candidate process. Now I will say, IBM has often looked at people coming out of startups. They've looked at people with the idea they're going to come into an organization, shake it up. I wouldn't want to be one of those people, because they're typically on that short list of folks that just hit themselves against their head against the wall a bunch of times until they can't take the pain anymore, and then they exit. So you kind of need thick skin. You need some experience with bureaucracy, and then of course you need whatever core skills that are required for the job. Right now, what IBM, of course, is looking for are skills with regard to cloud. They're advancing their secure cloud initiative, so a combination of security and cloud would be beneficial to them, since that's their differentiator. Watson's not making money right now, but they're still looking for people with AI knowledge. I shouldn't say that correctly. It's making money, it's just not profitable. And so that I'm not sure I would necessarily go into Watson AI at the moment, because they're probably going to go through adjustments. Anytime you've got a unit that's fighting for profit, that means get a new manager that his path to profit may be reducing costs, and the easiest way to do that is to get rid of people. So I probably would stay away from AI and IBM as a job right now. I'd go to someplace like NVIDIA, who's hiring up the yin yang for it, and I could still work on IBM projects because NVIDIA and IBM partner. But it'd probably be a better career path on the NVIDIA side than the IBM side on AI. And then of course, finally, software and services is generally a safe place to go for IBM, depending on where you are in your education. IBM wouldn't be one of the top places I would want to place somebody that's new out of a university, though, because of that bureaucratic problem. I would prefer they take an intermediate step in another company, so they pick up some of those core skills they might not get in IBM. Now, there is an IBM University, but the problem is you kind of have to be an executive resources to get in, which means you have to be there, you have to be recognized as a top contributor, and then you can get into the IBM University, which kind of implies the more skills you have going into a company like IBM, the better off you're going to be. They've been pretty aggressive as far as doing things like bringing women back that have left the workforce to raise a family, but had core skills, and those core skills may be out of date, and they'll bring them back in and retrain and put them in place. And they've been really aggressive in terms of hiring people out of the military, folks that have developed core skills, say working on an aircraft carrier or destroyer on computer systems. They'll take those folks and they'll have a priority coming in. And if you worked in the military, you've learned bureaucracy. It's just a different kind of bureaucracy, and ex-military types tend to actually do pretty well in the company. So that's probably where I'd look at, probably try to get people into some type of an interim job before IBM, or get them into an apprentice program with IBM as they're going through education. So when they came out, they had a good understanding of how to get things done in a big company, and then they'll be far more successful. And then I've got to run because my next meeting starts in 1 minute.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you. Professor Donalds, we discussed about digital futures. So how do you want to analyze today's sessions, and how do you want to add your points? Ugochukwu, I'm coming to you after that. Yeah.
I think it's kind of amusing because I got stuck here. I couldn't hear you. And so I switched browsers from Chrome to Firefox, and then it started working. So that's the digital future, spending hours screwing around with software that doesn't work. But I've just been reading this fascinating book by a UC Berkeley professor named Kate Crawford, who's also a researcher at Microsoft. It's called The Atlas of AI. It just came out. I found it in Science Magazine. It was reviewed, and she talks about AI, and I dovetails into something that Rob said, that there's this enormous structure that allows AI to work. You have to be able to mine lithium. You have to be able to mine rare earth elements. You have to have power. You have to have water. You have to have people to be able to do it. And she kind of maintains that in a sense, AI is actually this gigantic structure. And she points out something that I've said, and I really believe that the way that people talk about AI is frankly ridiculous. Brains are not symbol manipulating machines. Human beings are not symbol manipulating. That was Minsky and Herbert Simon and those guys believed that. But we are constantly creating and recreating our reality because of our interactions with each other. So we know what things mean. Like we know a chair is a chair and IBM is IBM and all the different things that we know. We have to know the same things. And if we don't know the same things, we can't talk to each other because I'm referring to something that we both know. And if we don't know what things mean, then we can't talk. And those meanings are not independent of human beings and human society and human interaction. So how is a computer going to be able to learn that? They're trying, but really all that a computer does is regression analysis and a few other statistical techniques that were developed in the 19th century. And the advances are really quite small. I learned how to make neural networks in college in the 70s from a guy named Dave Huffman, who was a very super respected computer scientist. And he learned from working with Marvin Minsky, who was considered to be the founder of artificial intelligence. And all we did was take neural patterns and convert them into matrices so that we could be able to simulate neural networks. And that's what AI deep learning is doing. What happened with AI deep learning is that it was going along and there wasn't enough processing power to actually be able to implement it. And then when NVIDIA came out with these incredible matrix analyzing screens, because really when you think about it, a computer video screen is a matrix. It's just a bunch of dots that are on your screen, and those dots change their value over time. And that's what winds up happening. So they developed things that could change those dots incredibly quickly. And that was a matrix. So they discovered that if you could get lots of those things, you wound up having lots of matrices, and one could feed into the other and then into the other and so on. And you could implement neural networks in a way that was actually useful. And so what winds up happening is each of these arrays changes its value and then changes its value again. And it creates a set of relationships between the different layers. And in a sense, it's a memory. It's a kind of memory that the memory is just created in a different way by assigning weights to values in neural nets. The weights are every dot has colors. and there's 60 on a low end. There's 65,000 colors for each, around 65,000 colors for each dot on the screen, and so that allows you to be able to give weights to each of the elements in the matrix as at a really quick speed. So what I'm getting at here is that, going back to what Rob said, really what AI is a bureaucracy to be able to create these things. It's nothing like intelligence. I mean, it's nothing like human intelligence. There's basically no relationship really at all. And it's just assigning weights to dots on NVIDIA processors. That's what it is. And humans have this huge analog part of themselves that we don't understand. We basically understand so little about how human beings actually work that we can have discussions. Edward and I could talk, because Edward's more a methodological individualist, and I'm a lot more from a social construction view of human beings. And either one of us could come up with volumes and volumes by some of the most brilliant scholars that ever lived to prove our point. And are either one of us right? No. I mean, it's more complicated than that. So what happens when you're a student and you want to make a career in life? I look at it as kind of two paths. One path is the entrepreneur path, and the other path is making yourself part of a bureaucracy. And if you want to grow and become a manager and become high in a corporation like IBM or NVIDIA or whatever company it is, you have to be part of the structure of that company. They're going to ask you, if you want to move from IBM to NVIDIA and you want to be a manager, the first question that they'll ask you, they already know your name, they already have your resume, is they're going to ask you, what is the largest budget that you controlled? How much was the budget that you controlled? And if that's a low number or not a very high number, they won't take you seriously, at least for advancement purposes. So the only way that you're going to wind up being able to do that, the kinds of money we're talking about, an entrepreneur is going to take a long time to get to. And entrepreneurs are independent anyway. You don't want them in corporations like that. They think for themselves, and they're a pain in the ass. I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm a pain.
Thank you. Ugochukwu,
Okay, I'm going to
please.
stop now. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Ugochukwu, I think you have a different analysis. Ugochukwu, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Donald, for the points that you made there. I agree in part with some of the things you've said, and you have a lot of experience in the field, obviously. My take is really, when I was writing the book, An Exercise in Clear Thinking, I thought of the challenges that we're facing. Okay, that's the word. Yeah, thanks so much, Edward. I thought of the challenges that we are confronting with the digital revolution that is happening in our world, and I actually wrote that book during the lockdown, and I thought of how technology really picked up so fast, in the midst of all the challenges that we witnessed. And I also thought of how the impact that the pandemic and the lockdown was supposed to have was drastically reduced because of the extent of the advancement of our technology. Back in my country here in Nigeria, you would think that during the lockdown that people were actually going to fall on the streets and die. Like, it was going to really be bad like that. Like it's portrayed on CNN. You see the mud houses and the black people. They are very poor and all of that. So you would think, you conjure up in your head that during the lockdown that it was really going to be bad. But it turned out not that bad as people thought of it, because actually it was here and I've witnessed it firsthand. What actually happened, on the other hand, was that people were on Twitter having fun, and people actually, to some extent, had money to eat and all of that. And I noticed that we have so much abundance in our world today that even people in the third world countries who, up until now, we thought that we are in their scarcity of resources, now have at least a meager amount of resources that is enough for them to make something for themselves, to make out something for their lives. But the problem and the challenge that we have today is that in the midst of this abundance, our minds, we have not, the cognitive structures of our minds have not developed enough to manage the level of abundance that we have today. And this abundance cuts across whether you're talking about material resources, abundance in material resources, or the amount of data in form of information that is flooding and our minds have to deal with. And so the real thesis behind the book, the real problem that the book set out to solve was to understand how our minds can how we can really wrap our minds around the a huge amount of data that we have in our world today, the huge amount of resources we have in our world today, and then make sense of it in order to create the kind of world that we want, so that we don't become engulfed and then we don't shoot ourselves on the foot with the same technology and the resources, the abundant resources that we have created. And so, where the problem that I set out to solve in the book Exercise in Clear Thinking stopped, I stopped at the rules that we can use. I set out 11 rules that we can use to clarify our thoughts, to clarify our thinking in processing this information so that we can think more better about our world, and then we can make accurate decisions fast enough so that we can thrive and survive in our world. Now, but the problem didn't stop there. So I set out on the second journey on my book. Or my career has been all about this intellectual journey of how to help human beings upgrade our intelligence so that we can make much better decisions accurately and fast enough. Because for me, that is simply what intelligence is all about. Ability to interpret the world accurately and to do it fast enough so that you can ensure your survival first and then you can progress. That's the job. So I set out in my second book, which is a journey to 1%. There I am outlining, my intention there is to outline the basic skills and the mindsets that you're going to need if you're going to thrive in this digital age of abundance that we exist. Because frankly, the problem that we are witnessing now is our technology is sufficiently advancing. And I believe from the way our technology is advancing, that it will come to a point that if we don't upgrade our intelligence, and when I talk about upgrading our intelligence, I mean upgrading the natural biological intelligence that we have, this gray matter, this organ that we have up here, if we don't find a way to upgrade it, to make better decisions, to make sense of the realities, the changes that are happening in our world, our technology is going to advance so much that it's the goals of our AI system, this artificial intelligence, which is the non-biological portion of our intelligence, is going to advance so much that it becomes so faster and so much better in interpreting the world, which is what intelligence is all about. In interpreting the world, it's going to become so advanced in its capability to do that, that we will not be able to catch up with it. So let's talk about quantum computing that has the capacity to run simulations, to calculate information at a very faster rate, more than any human brain can calculate it. If it starts calculating and solving problems at that rate, what are the chances that we can really wrap our minds around these systems in order to make sense of it? So my theory and my belief is that we have an advanced knowledge in our world today. We have advanced our knowledge so far and so big enough that it has become so huge. And we see this reflected in our technologies. Our technologies is an evidence of the extent of the advancement of our knowledge. But it's not an evidence of the advancement of our intelligence, because intelligence is quite different from knowledge. Knowledge is more like the information, the data that you have that you're going to use to solve problem. But intelligence is the processing system that processes this information in order to make sense out of it. Our intelligence is clunky. It is still not advanced enough to process the amount of information, the huge amount of data that our world is producing today, that we are producing today. And so we need to upgrade our intelligence. And when I talk about upgrading our intelligence, you cannot upgrade your intelligence with a computer. You upgrade the biological intelligence by upgrading it with skills and the right mindsets that you need to enable you to make better decisions. If you want to look at, if you want to understand how advanced your technology, your intelligence is, not your knowledge now, you want to look at the level of decisions that you make and how mature your decisions are. And if you look at both in the public sphere and even in our families and in our homes, you will find out that our decision mechanism has drastically reduced. As our technology and our knowledge grows, our decisions is more like it's becoming it's becoming even worse. Just take a look at how we responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. With the advanced level of our technology, we still made so terrible decisions that some might even argue that we even made better decisions when we had the SARS epidemic than what we did now. So it's more like our technology is advancing, our knowledge is advancing, but our intelligence is not going alongside with it. So we need to upgrade our intelligence. And we're not going to do that with technology, with fixing robotic AIs or implanting chips in our head. We need to do that old-fashioned way by upgrading, by getting skills and mindset, the right mindset that will enable us to make accurate and fast and decisions fast enough to enable us to thrive. So time will tell me to go into some of the skills and the mindset that I think that I've been exploring that can help people making better decisions. But I have a Facebook page, and I've been exploring, I've been doing a series on some of these mindsets and some of these skills of the mind that we need to know how to make accurate decisions. And it's based on this template that I've been developing the courses that I'm teaching in the schools that the schools that I'm working with. Is Petrol Schools, is a secondary school. And I believe if we start teaching these skills, these mindsets at a very young age, about decision making, about how to think clearly, about how to make accurate decisions, all of these skills, if we start teaching these skills at a very young age, we will be able to catch them young and we'll be able to make better decisions for our future. And I believe this is the kind of thinking and the kind of and the right path we need to take as we go into the next phase of our digital future.
Excellent. Thank you. Like, if we want to launch our digital academy for futuristic skills and knowledge and for these things, what would be its model? Like, how we can share the content with the Asia Pacific young people? What will be your advice? That last question that I want to get some feedback, and most important thing is that from our speakers, if you want to share your syllabus, that what kind of subject or like matters you want to share with our local communities and the youth communities, you can share with me, because from the next month we are actually launching our academy as well as our summit. And beside that, I told that our educational things, it's mean our university, we are also launching. So we want to start from scratch, because last 1 year, what we discussed, we try to learn that how we can take the better strategy. Like these universities, what we are trying to build in between South Asia and Asia, like Malaysia and Singapore, like definitely it will be much more advanced, I can promise. Definitely we can bring the better strategy and we can bring more solution for the local communities, and definitely with the help of the speakers, the talented speakers, those who join in World Talent Economy Forum. So this is the things we are actually working on, how we can do more fundraising for our initiative, as well as we want to do more research, because research is very important for developing nations. Important thing is that still there is a lot of room, but we have to develop it. So we need the support. Even we are working with the government, with the corporations and other things, that how we can develop better educational things. So hopefully with the help of our speakers, we can solve these things. So I request all of our audience, share our content as much as possible, subscribe our channels, and we are moving with our fundraising initiative, support our fundraising initiative in Patreon, and also the corporation, those who regularly communicate with us, different big corporation from Asia Pacific, support our initiative. Already many big corporation also join with us, join with our movement, and they are also trying to support how to develop our university. But for this, make it more perfect, more effective, I think we need to go for a combined strategy. We have to move with a combined strategy. So I think Professor Donald, Professor Edward, Dr. Eric, even Ali, all of you are experienced. Your experience actually important for us. Your strategy, your guideline is important for us. And I can assure you that what the university we are developing right now, already we have 100,000 students, but what the university we will grow, it much more advanced. And how the like our policymakers and our corporations are thinking, we are trying to change their mindset. So suddenly I cannot change the mindset. So that is the things we are arranging, this kind of roundtable discussion, policy discussions. We share our content. Yeah, see, this is the modern world, how they thinks, what is their advice. This is the best scholar advice, as well as this is the advice from the industry. So by this way, last 1 year, we are trying to convince the local ecosystem. We are getting good feedback. That is good point. Soon, different countries, education ministers, as well as different education groups and corporations, they are also joining in the policy level discussions. And we are ensured that we are sharing our content with them. So hopefully our initiative will be more productive, but we need your support, because without the global commitment, we cannot solve the local problem. So I want to go for the concluding remarks, as well as what is your advice you can share with us. I want to start from Professor Edward, then Mr. Eric, then Madam Ali, then Ugu Chuko, and finally Professor Donald.
Thank you very much. I want to congratulate you, Sharif, because we talk about entrepreneurship in industry. We talk about entrepreneurship in business, but as important is entrepreneurship in society, entrepreneurship in education. And that's exactly what you're doing, is you are an educational entrepreneur. And so is Ugo Chupo. As I say, I recommend highly his book. The one thing I would say is, as an entrepreneur in education, we have to be experimental. We have to indeed look at the knowledge coming from the commentators on your show. This is crucial, and I will contribute as much as I possibly can to the effort. But experimentation is, of course, the essence of science. And it's also the essence of any kind of discovery. And that's what you're doing. And you have a very good basis right now because of the shows you've been doing, because of the input you have been getting. The one thing I would add that you have mentioned is the importance of culture. I am indeed an individualist. I'm indeed someone who has been informed by what we call the Enlightenment, the respect for knowledge, for science, for reason. But I also realize the importance of culture, the importance of our institutions. It was mentioned that during the COVID crisis, we've had serious problems. One of the serious problems in this country is our Food and Drug Administration, that was set up in 1962, was simply inadequate to allow the treatments that were very quickly developed, the vaccines very quickly developed, to be certified quickly. And it could have saved literally hundreds of thousands of lives. Our institutions, in many ways, education and other institutions, are simply not up to the challenges of the future and exponential technology. So as we work to do what Ugo has suggested and what others have suggested, to train our minds to be able to think, to be able to use technology to help us rather than rule us, we're going to have to look at our institutions as well, our political institutions, our cultural institutions, and the like, so that we can take a real integrative approach. And that's what a really innovative university is going to be able to do. So this is very exciting, and I call it to everybody's attention to support this effort.
Thank you, Professor Edward. Dr. Eric.
Yeah, we've talked a number of times offline before about this education initiative, and I wish you well, and I wish the university in Malaysia or wherever it's going to be well. But truth be told, you have a number of people, us here, on this platform to speak about things, and we're really just pontificating based on what we know and what we have and all that. But there's no guiding principle that we're creating here that you can utilize in a functional way to actually create a university of any sort or a teaching paradigm or of anything. I mean, you just have a bunch of people chatting about certain things knowledgeably, ostensibly, but you got to get down to the brass tacks. You have to really have to draft actual steps of how to do certain things, and there's nothing of that sort is being engaged here. I wouldn't even know how to begin, how to actually implement what we were discussing here and in previous talks into creating any sort of a educational system. This is a much more the undertaking required to make such educational system it has to be much more thorough than what you're getting from a bunch of us talking about this thing. I mean, I don't want to poo-poo what you're trying to do, but it's great to have a nice chat and listen to and hear different opinions and understandings of things. But when it comes to actually making something happen here, you can't be relying on what we're doing here in this platform. It's just that you have people whose lives are going to be dependent on how you're going to create this educational system. And it has to be proven. It has to be properly funded. It has to have metrics and rubrics and all these other stuff. And not just because that's the way it's been done before. It's because you have to prove the things and you have to validate these things. And you can't just run it off the cuff and then assume that things are going well. Because when people are going to push back and say, "Hey, how do we know we're actually getting what we're getting?" Okay, you have to have the metrics written down and then prove that you have achieved those things. And I don't have an answer for those things.
Okay, I just sharing this report, Dr. Eric, because I can remember 1 year before when I first invite you, I said that we are trying to launching the educational problem, and when COVID come to
I read
this
this. I read your
I'm just
this
sharing.
$1 trillion losses makes no sense to me. I mean, it's a figment loss. It's an opportunity loss. It is not a physical loss. Okay.
No. Because you are not engaged with industry. Because you are living Silicon Valley. I do not find you visited South Asia properly. I do not find you visit India. You visit Bangladesh. You visit Pakistan. You visit Sri Lanka. Yeah, so that is the problem.
Which is why
I do it.
Why my opinions have very little weight.
Definitely, definitely. I do it, and we build up. This is not my first initiative in Cambrian Education Group. Perhaps you never visited. That's why you are in trouble. So Cambrian Education Group we build up in Bangladesh. This is the largest education group. We are not here only for discussion or Facebook Live. 12 years before we build up these things, 12 years before. So I have my 12 years of experience. I started with 28 students, and when I come for my PhD programs, I finish 100,000 student services in Bangladesh. And as you are not engaged with the ecosystem properly, I'm very sorry about that. Maybe that's why you do not have proper understanding. When I say that, okay, this is the real problem, I saw that many billions and $billion invest by the government for mega project, for this project, for that project, for many things. But I'm sharing, I can take the responsibility because I visited the Prime Minister office different countries. I visited investments and all of the important office like planning ministry, these, that, and I take the responsibility. And from the responsibility, I can say we do not have proper solution for education. This is the meaning. When you do not have proper educational strategy and system and proper collaboration, it will collapse. That is the meaning of this report. That is the meaning of this report. And for doing these things, we need many field work. Let's say this is the discussion we are doing. The whole day I do work in International Islamic University in Malaysia, largest university in Malaysia. So we are doing a lot of physical work. Not only physical work, when I share our views and other things, already we are providing service 100,000 students. We are not joking. We have 42 campuses. We are moving with our tertiary educations. We do lots of research. I can give you hundred of evidence that what the remote area I visited with my team is. And we bringing, like today, like whole day, I just work in the education institutions, the university, how they are working, what is the problem, why they going to remote work. Because only if I sit here, I cannot find out the problem. I have to go to the field. I have to discuss with the peoples. That is the entrepreneurship. From my life, I do not learn from it Stanford, or I do not learn it from MIT. I learn it from my personal life, that I have to go to the field work. I have to, what you say always, that I have to do all of the field level work, and then I have to solve it. So second things, like when I declared about the university, definitely when we go for the merger and acquisition, because I do not come up with in the public until or unless our prime minister give the signature, okay, you get approval. But it's need feasibility study. It's need like millions of dollar investment commitment. It's need infrastructure. It's need next 5 years students. So I manage it. Then I declared it. Yes, I have it. And I want to do it. So it's not a Facebook Live. I'm more productive, more make it. So we have many field work and resources and many things. Let's say our primary level education system is ready. Then we are moving with this tertiary level. So when we go for the tertiary level, then Professor Edward, Professor Donald, Dr. Eric, Uguchuku, Mr. Tom, Dr. Ali, everybody come. So I do not have chance to right now in the COVID situation to visit every country. Naturally, I do. But when I have to do it, so I have to find out the real mindset, those who want to contribute. But fact is that when this is my track record, you can check. When I committed that I will do it, naturally I do it. When I started my journey, many people deny me. Hey, it's not possible. WT forum is not a practical thing, this, that, blah, 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 blah. But I am committed to my work. So not me, it's a teamwork. We have actually very big teams. We are working with this university. So we have our feasibility study. It's a meaningful. We have our 100,000 student service. We provide already for tertiary, not tertiary level, for primary and secondary level. So we have our records. And for getting 100,000 students, we reach millions of people. I can commit to you. Millions of people. That's why I clearly can understand whenever the people say, hey, what is the big corporation, these, that. I know they never go to the remote area. I know because I personally go. They never touch to the genuine people. They never touch to the village people, remote areas people. All of the things I learned from the field. So that's why I do not. This is the real things. It's not argument. It's our preparation. We have all of our preparations, our education. Even today, actually, national newspapers and other things, they come up with this news that we already submit our proposal. Yes. From our discussion, those who are highly capable, like example, those who have scientific research, those who have industrial experience like you, those who have real passions like Uguchuku's, those who have like Professor Donald, Professor Edward, always come up with a very good evidence. Dr. Eric Du is very important for us because of your industrial experience. Because example, you have experience from Silicon Valley. This is very important for us. So how we can interact, this is important. So hopefully all of the necessary support from my side or from our team side, we are managing. We are not just discussing and sitting and eating. we doing more work. So hopefully it will work. When we see,
Here.
we will work well, and hopefully from next month we are launching our academic things, and this year we will launching our university, and that is the final commitment from my side. Yes.
Here.
Dr. Eric, if you have any kind of question, you can ask me, because we have our keen intentions. We did a lot of hard work. I think if you visited these countries, example, country like India, country like Bangladesh, country like Malaysia, if you visit, perhaps you never visit. If you visit, then you can understand the inner beauty or internal, how should I say, strategy and other thing. Example, I visited Oxford University, I implement in Bangladesh. I visited Cambridge University, we implement in Bangladesh. This is more modern. Not only that, many scholars, they visited our institution, many students, they go there and do internship and everything.
Here.
I
Good
can.
show. I need to sign off. Good show, folks. Talk to you later.
I'll
Bye-bye.
be happy to visit anywhere in the world or beyond the
Excellent.
world even. I don't care. Okay. But I don't have a say in these things. Who am I for people to listen to Dr. Eric and say, oh yeah, let's do what he says? I mean, these guys, that's ridiculous. I mean, I could make very poignant and appropriate comments and discussions and raise, clear issues and all that. But who would be listening to just me and go, yeah, let's follow what he says? I mean, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't listen to myself. You need to get consensus. You need to get buy-in. You got to have other people understand, have everybody's stake in the game and all that. I mean, all those things have to be done. That what we're doing here in this World Economic Forum is not being addressed. I mean, I love to help and chat with this, but this is just a small little tip of the iceberg in how to make this thing happen.
No, definitely. We have different team, because example, when what I can require get support from the global arena. Let's say Professor Donald's. Maybe Professor Donald can give us good syllabus, right? Good research. You can give us good industrial experience. Ugochukwu can give us more like design thinking and different concept. Ali can give us innovations and these things. That is the way of doing things. Like example, when a department develop, so there are different mindset people actually come. So that is the entrepreneurship, right? That is the entrepreneurship. There are different skill set people come, and we actually march together and we work
do
together.
This for a test group of, let's say, 10, 15, 20 students or something like that. Do it for 100,000 to 1 million people. Oh.
No, we do it. We do it
with a lot of stuff.
No, yes, for so handling these things, we have around 1,600 teacher, like faculty, 1,600 professor we have. So yes, like example, definitely it's not a 100 people job. When we bring, let's say, 10,000 students, definitely it's 1,000 faculty job, because we go for 10:1, like 10 teachers, 1 student. So 10 student, 1 teacher. That is the way we actually move naturally. Even in Cambridge, I learned that 1-to-1, 1 teacher, 1 students. That is the way they are moving. But in our capacity, I cannot. Maximum 1 teachers, 10 students. That is the way. So actually, this is different game ball. We have to manage these things. First thing first, we have to get the approval. So we are very close to getting this approval and everything. That is the things I can share. And suddenly government do not give me approval if I do not have the base work. Let's say this investment, this campus, this research lab, these students, this 5 years plan, even deposit in the millions dollar to the government things. Otherwise, they will not give us the permission. So this is the part of the entrepreneurial things, and we also ensure these things. Already we ensured these things, because you have the right. When you engage with me, you have the right. You can ask me question, and I should give all of the answer. Yeah. Yes.
So,
okay.
Feel free to go to your next speaker.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Ugochukwu.
Okay. Yeah. Quite an interesting conversation there. I learned a lot. And then it's more like when this conversation was going on, I was also reflecting back on the program I'm doing back here in Nigeria, trying to put courses together for students in school. And it's more like you get to a point whereby you're stuck and you don't know which way to go, forward or back, and you make a lot of consultations, and then you meet experts, you ask them questions, and you borrow ideas here and there, and then you try to put them together, and you're not sure which one is going to work and how it's going to work out. But the thing there is, the key point that we're trying to make here, and the basis for all of this is educational entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And the very principle behind entrepreneurship is you don't know it all before you start. Nobody knows the end of the journey before you start. And if you want to figure out the whole path of the journey, the whole sequence of the journey before you start, you're not going to start anything. As a matter of fact, the very education, the traditional education that we have today was a large experiment that was started by big corporations who wanted to put people together and teach them systems so that they can be able, so that they will be able to function in their factories and build up things and set up society in their way, in the way they want it. It's more like a large experiment by bigger corporations and governments. So, and it's never done. There is no day that we say we've gotten it all. So it's an experiment that we keep tweaking, and we keep trying to understand the whole process so we get to the point. So I think of it as educational social entrepreneurs. When we talk about this education, the digital future that we're facing, the people who have the courage to go into this, and then who have the courage to dare to try to make this change or to try to figure out this path are social entrepreneurs, because they have that daring spirit, and they say, though we do not have the full knowledge of the whole thing, we do not have a circumspective knowledge of everything that is required, but we want to go into this field and we want to see the good we can make. Now, I understand that good intentions is not enough for you to achieve results, real tangible results in the field. You need practical experience, you need practical knowledge. But that's the importance of having these experts, coming in handy. And you're gonna ask the guy who is in, let's say, in the engineering department, how those engineers think when they want to solve problems.
Exactly.
Like one of the courses that I'm offering to the student is how to think like an engineer. And I want to go down because my background is in philosophy. I studied philosophy. And you understand that in whatever problem that you want to solve, you want to get down to the basic principles of that problem before you want to solve it. If you don't have deep experience, let's say in engineering or let's say in education, but you want to solve a problem in that area, it is not best for you to go in and start learning the approaches and the strategies that are involved, the methodologies. That is the waste of time. You want to go down to the basic principles, to the first principles of that industry, and you want to understand what is applicable there. If you understand the first principles of any system, you can, to a large extent, try to attempt something and then get the knowledge, employ the knowledge of experts in this field, and then trying to put up something together that can give you the go-ahead order to approach that problem to at least to an extent that you don't cause a catastrophic damage sufficient enough that is going to have a huge impact if you understand the basic principles. So it is based on this notion of basic principles that I'm approaching the work that I am doing. I wouldn't say that I have I don't have 50 years of experience or 100 years of experience like IBM or big companies in order to dare to make that change. But the clear thing there is a change needs to be done, because the current educational system that we have, at least in my country, is not working. Let's tell ourselves the truth. It's not working, and something needs to be done. So we're going to start off from what is working. How are the folks in Google doing it? How are the folks in Dangote, one of the largest companies in my country here, is doing it? How are the folks in Apple and Google? How are they doing it there? What are the specific areas that they are getting right? We get a niche, we get a bit from here, a bit from here, a bit from here. And then before you know it, with constant iteration of the process, we can come up with something that we can now hand over to the next generation, that this is what we have. This is the part that we have contributed. We were here, and this is what we try to do. And we hope that it's going to come out straight. So I encourage Sharif in what you're doing. And in any way I can support, and in any way.
No, we will work together.
And so I encourage all of us, let's not think that we have to get it all mapped out before we start off in the first place. We have to have that courage, because above everything else, the highest form of intelligence that we need is courage. Courage is a form of intelligence that you need in order to solve any problem. So we need that courage to dare to make the change that we need. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Even Dr. Eric, you are always mentor like for me, always, because I learn a lot from you. Even not only from these discussions, even like behind the scene, I learn a lot from you. Maybe you are just thinking that how you want to contribute, but I learn how actually different kind of strategies, startup industries and other things. This is the things we have to share as much as people can understand. Hey, this is the way actually startup grow. I know that example, there are different developing countries. They do not have this experience. Like experience is important. Like Uguchuku, I never visit Africa. True. I'm learning every time. Even example from Silicon Valley, what's going on? Dr. Eric actually first give me the guideline. Hey, this is the way we are working. This is the way we can improve. So developing nations need these things exactly. So when we develop our university, I ensured, let's say from African experience, from Silicon Valley's experience, from European experience, they can learn. I'm also from a small country, very small place. But when I go to the abroad, when I study abroad, when I engage with different culture, I learn a lot. Every time I learn. I learn from American people, I learn from European people, I learn from African people, even from Asian people. And I want to say I'm a global citizen. So I want to share these views. I'm sure, Dr. Eric, it's not a hard feelings. I'm not defending you, because we respect from our cultures people like you. We really, really respect. And we really, Professor Donalds and everyone. So hopefully we can work together. And what you are thinking, everything we are preparing. Even after the sessions, you can sit with me. All of the documents, like what you are thinking, like feasibility study, investments, behind the scene, there are a lot of work. Everything, even the big partner for universities and other thing, we are ensuring one thing we want best university in, let's say, in Asia. So it's need people. It's need different people, different culture, different people. It's not a one-man show. Definitely we need 100 of different faculties. Okay, faculty, maybe how to do the business development, how to do marketing, how to do engage with people, we may know. But example, different culture, better about Silicon Valley, about Stanford, about MIT. So we have to change the perception, right? This is the way we will improve, hopefully. So Madam Ali, what is your concluding remarks? And finally, Professor Donald. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say a quote, actually, because this is from Einstein, but he basically says the intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind is a faithful servant. And we've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And essentially, since the first lockdown in England, I actually went back to basics, and I've been training with another social entrepreneur that's based in Australia. And I've realized just how intuitive an artist I am. And my genius ability actually is actually leading the creative process for children, so that they all have an individual, and students in an individual journey and a shared one, but they steer it. And I think one of the things that we're doing when we bring everyone together is we need to know about models of best practice and how things work and how we can apply them to our own situations. So they're kind of bespoke in the way I do them, but the learning that we gain and the way that we do things needs to change. And the digital aspects of things enables us to inspire and engage students in a world that's completely overruled by, our children are much better digitally than we are, and that's their generation. And what we need to do is bridge the gap between that generation and us, because they're the experts in the field, and they're the ones that make films and connect with each other all the time in a different way, you know. And essentially what we need to do is kind of build the bridges, and there is a cohesion and a way forward. And everyone thinks something's impossible until we achieve it, but the things that we've achieved somewhere along the line were always impossible in someone's head. So essentially, you know, you've got no right to say nothing's impossible unless you're not kind of trying. Because I think we need change makers, and entrepreneurs are the ones that have got the agility to do it. And big corporations have been steering us in different directions for their own agendas, but they're not always people friendly or planet friendly, or, you know. And essentially is that we have to think for ourselves and genuinely make decisions that are good for our families and for our, you know, and we know our cultures and our countries better than anyone. So I think it's not a one size fits all at all. But that intuition and creativity is really important. So yeah, for me, that, you know, that creativity is key to the way that we move forward and to how we innovate.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, Professor Donald.
I found a lot of the comments really interesting. I love Dr. Eric's because he reminded me of being in an angel group evaluating a startup. We're brutal. Angels are brutal. They're, and it's usually useful for the startup too. It's sometimes it gives them a more clear path. I want to emphasize something that I've said in almost every show, which is that human beings don't act on themselves by themselves. All of your knowledge came from somewhere else. So it comes from outside of you. I mean, you can, so the whole, like now in neuroscience, and I really recommend a book, some books by, it'll come back to me, but one of them is Descartes' Dream, Antonio Damasio, Descartes' Dream, or Descartes' Error, Antonio Damasio. And what he shows is that we can't make decisions rationally, because ultimately it has to be an emotional reaction that causes us to decide whether something's true or false. We have to feel, we have to have some sort of neural process that causes us to do that. And sociological research has shown that where you are in status hierarchies within groups, which form any group, a meeting, a team, is going to wind up with somebody that becomes the leader, and and other people that have different roles. One of them's the jokester, the person who lightens things up. I mean, there can be any number of roles within it, but you can show by the hierarchy what decisions they're going to make. You can predict. So people aren't making decisions rationally, and we have what's called the illusion of choice, where we can't remember what was happening at the time we made the decision, because other things have intervened and changed our memory of the situation. And so we have a tendency to remember that we were much more deliberate in the decisions that we made than we actually are. Like, we tend to take credit for luck, something that'll happen by luck. We have a tendency to say, well, that was because of my good decisions. So how can you move forward in the idea that it's almost saying that there's no free will? And free will is a very political and political concept, but regardless, we do train ourselves. Like the responses that we have are based on our experience and knowledge. I mean, our brain is constantly being reprogrammed, and we can program our brains to be able to do things in the most effective possible way. So it's not, they're not mutually exclusive in any way. I want to also go to what you were saying and what Ali was saying, which is that all the research on creativity shows a number of things, but two of them that are salient right now is that people don't come up with things that are completely new and different. And if they did, nobody would understand them. Nobody would use them. It's just silly. I mean, I could take the vegetables out of my refrigerator and burn them in a pile in the backyard, and that's creative. Hardly anybody, who's ever done that. But what value is it? None. Okay, so we have to do, as you said, open ourselves to knowledge that we get from everywhere. And the other thing about creativity is that a really great researcher, Creativity Explained by Keith Sawyer, who I very much admire, he points out that creative people do a lot. They do things, they try things. Duke Ellington is one of the greatest composers ever in America, and he wrote 3,000 songs. 50 of them are absolute standards that every jazz musician knows how to play, and which means that 2,950 of them have basically been forgotten. So the two keys that I think that you're doing that I think are super valuable is extending your networks and being able to extend the degree of information that you can get, and doing it. If you don't do it, nothing's going to happen. I mean, you can be. I'm going to end with this kind of joke, really, but I knew this guy that smoked a lot of pot in Santa Cruz, which is not unusual, and he would sit in the chair, kind of smiling to himself. And I'd say, well, what are you doing? And he says, oh, I'm being creative. You can create things in your mind until you turn blue in the face, but creativity is really, you're creative when people agree that you're creative. You can't do it by yourself. And so I understand what you're trying to do by doing this show of connecting different people and different kinds of ideas. And that's going to be a key part, because you're not going to, actually, I do want to say one other thing, which is that we talk about being overwhelmed by knowledge, but human beings have always had a division of labor. I read this interesting book called The Story of the Mongols, formerly called the Tartars. And in 1241, this guy went to the Mongol Khan with a letter from Pope Gregory telling him he should convert to Christianity. And that was before Marco Polo. He went this arduous journey and he made it finally over there. And I mean, so when he got back, he had knowledge no one else in the world had. Where do we get our knowledge? We can't do everything. We can't be everything. We have to be able to develop relationships and teams of people that can make things happen. And it's always been that way. So that's
Thank
what
you.
I want.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. You can observe few of our initiative 2013. I think 8 years before we launched world largest academy in Bangladesh, and all of the people from around the world, best faculties from debating, and it's a big event. Even we launched in India World Debating Championship. I shared that it is still one of the largest intellectuals like activities around the world. So you can see from our YouTube channel that how many students and people, actually even people from around the world, they're joining in our event. It's 8 years before in its year 2013. Beside that, at present, Asia Research and Development Institute, Al Noor Academy, School of Talent Economy, what we are actually still we are operating beside this World Talent Economy forums. We are actually trying to solve the local ecosystems, but definitely we need a lot of collaboration, lot of partnership, lot of intellectual initiative, because people's is important. Always people can solve the problem, and people can help each others. So that is the way we are actually thinking. So hopefully World Talent Economy Forum's initiative, what we are trying to, not trying, we are developing with our university project, hopefully it will be very successful projects, and need all of your support. Dr. Eric, Ali, Professor Donald, even Uguchukwu, Transhumanist Party, or Transdisciplinary Agora for Future Discussions, all of the best scholars, those who join in World Talent Economy Forums, we need your support, because without the collaborations, we cannot solve big problem. $1 trillion, this is not only business, there is a system error. This is the problem. So system error, we can solve with the global academicians. That is my personal experience, because my personal life changed with a lot of with the help of lot of professor, lot of academician, and lot of corporate people. So I know how, when the local community engage with the global community, they can learn a lot and they can change themselves. So thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. We need more of your support. Dr. Eric, Madam Ali, Professor Donalds, Uguchukwu, Rob, and Edward, all of them, we need the collaborations, and by this way we can solve problem. And I request everyone, if possible, share your like syllabus, what you want to teach, share your guidelines, what you want to do. Hopefully with our honest and sincere and hard work, we can manage many things together. Thank you for joining today's session. I'm sure today's session is very, very important, especially for our strategy development. Thank you, Dr. Eric, because you asked me question, that's why I give you the answer. So thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye. Nice to see
Bye.
you.
Bye.